Call to order the Select Board meeting from Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. It's 7:39 right now. I see a quorum of the board is present. We have Mr. Gito, Ms. Roberts to my left, and Mr. McCrisky and Vice Chair Carrera to my right. I'm here as well, so all 5 members being present, I call the meeting to order. If you're able to, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much.
You want your mic on.
Okay, so we'll get started with first order of business, select board comments. I'll start with Mr. McCrisky. Do you have any comments tonight?
No, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Carrera?
I have none.
No comments? Ms. Roberts?
No comments, sir.
Mr. Gito, do you have any comments for this evening?
Yes, I do.
Sure.
I've been away from the board for a while here. I've been remote. But in the time that I've been remote, over the last, from the end, say, of August about to a couple of weeks ago, or even up to today, I think that there was something happened that was very important for the town. And that is the FBI's reassessment of the Sandra Birchmore case. And I spent quite a bit of time, as I'm sure we all did, reading all of the articles on that, and I learned a whole lot that I didn't know before. And I guess to start with, I'd like to thank the Globe for their detailed reporting and also for their opportunity that they and others have given Chief McNamara the opportunity to talk about how outraged the town is to what happened. I took the time to write a brief letter to the Globe on that, and quite frankly, I would like to read it and I would like to talk about it a little, because I think that it's important for the town to realize how badly one of our citizens had been treated. So my letter is, I thank the Boston Globe's in-depth reporting for providing us with a view of Sandra Birchmore's tragic crime scene through the eyes of the FBI investigations. We see a young woman doing laundry, celebrating her pregnancy, interrupted and found dead hanging from a doorknob, with the Kent police investigators theorizing Sandra committed suicide by hanging herself, and the DA's office embracing the suicide theory to this day. A deceased pregnant woman, a married police officer / lover visiting to end a relationship. The scene makes you instinctively think of suicide. The FBI graciously indicated that it had much better and greater resources than the state and was able to reach a different conclusion. Like George Floyd in Minnesota and many, many more in many states, Sandra Birchmore, in the eyes of Massachusetts law enforcement, was an insignificant part of society. But Sandra Birchmore and her memory are not insignificant. Instead of fading from front page news and editorials and governmental verbal stalling, Sandra Birchmore's name should become associated with statewide law enforcement reform. And I'll say that again. Sandra Birchmore's name should become associated with statewide law enforcement and reform. Governor Healy, formerly our Attorney General, was able to recognize the importance of putting a person outside of the state police in charge of that organization. But that should be the beginning of the reform, not the end. A 21st century communications organization and scientific revamping of an 18th century law enforcement structure is needed, and the time is now. Now, I say all that. I have 3 daughters. If anything, God forbid, had happened to them in the same way, and their death were considered a suicide, and that persisted for several years, and to this day in terms of the DA's office, that would be tragic, especially when we find that another organization with perhaps greater understanding of what a situation is like came to an entirely different conclusion. Sandra was a person who grew up, went through the school system in our town. We all have, at one time or another, talked about people we know and how tragic it is that they died, and felt sorry for their family and for them. If we had known Sandra Birchmore like we know some of the people we talked about, and I personally talked about my cousin who was about 100 years old when he died. So, I mean, I'm not saying, you know, just other people do that. I did that as well. If I had known her like I knew my cousin, my hair would be on fire. I would be so angry. You know, we see so many things that happen, and it comes into the news and then goes out. And then we go to the next case and the next case. So we put Band-Aids on things. You know, when I said in my note that we need to revamp the system, it is that we need to really rethink how we do things. Their communications are different than they were a long time ago. We need to not just put a Band-Aid on it, say, oh, well, we'll do this, we'll do that, and just think about it. You know, if we got behind as a community and pushed for people to take a look at and to take really significant steps to deal with changing things that are a problem, we could make Sandra Birchmore's name something that was important in terms of making those changes. We, as a town, got out of civil service last year because we didn't think that some of the things were being done in the state in terms of dealing with law enforcement were going right. And we needed to have an escape hatch. I say all that getting back to the fact that, you know, when we know people, our hair gets on fire when we see a mistake. But if we don't, then it's just turn the page. When is the next thing going to happen? But there's real need for change. That's all I have to say about that. I do have a couple of other things that I'd like to say
By all means.
that are not in the same vein. I'd like to thank the DPW, the town manager, for planting flowers in the square. My Lord, what a change. Thank you. Thank Paul Jaffoon and his staff. And I'd like to give a shout out to a fellow named Eric Newborn, who lives at the corner of Plain and West Street. He talked to me last year and said, you know, there are a lot of accidents right here. The stop sign is about 2 car lengths back from the intersection. I talked with Mr. Tisdale. He said, I think we can deal with that. And he and the DPW made some significant changes to that intersection while they were repaving Plain Street. And the stop sign is now down where it actually can be seen and where people should stop. That intersection was a problem before. There were a lot of accidents, and some of them real good smashes. So I just want to thank Mark, his crew, and the DPW did a heck of a job there, changing that roadway configuration. And I think that will probably save a life or two over time. So thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I have no comments for tonight, so I'll just move on to the next item, which is town manager comments, if you have any, sir.
No comments, sir.
Okay, so then we'll move on to the last part of the first section of our meeting, which is citizen comments. Just want to have an idea of how many people are looking to speak. Only one? Okay. Ms. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. A family member works at a recycling facility, and they recently had a small fire because someone put their cell phone in the recycling. And it got me to thinking that if someone were to put their lithium battery device into recycling all the regular trash, it could conceivably blow up, injure DPW employees, and we could lose a packer. I mean, if the load catches fire, there's really no way to put it out. Another thing that bothers me is a lot of these explosion happens while they're being recharged, these devices. And you've probably noticed that one blew up at Brockton High School, several house fires, garage fires caused by recharging devices with lithium batteries. What scares me the most is almost every kid's bedroom in town has a device with a lithium battery. And they have cell phones, they have tablets, they have laptops, and some of them may charge them in their bedrooms. And if you recharge one of these devices on a carpet or an upholstered surface, or God forbid their bed, the conflagration would be far greater when the device explodes. And those surfaces, many of them are made from oil, they don't burst into flame immediately. They smolder and create a great deal of smoke. And if the child's bedroom door is shut and there's no fire or smoke detector in the room, they could conceivably die before there were any open flames by smoke. Now, if you've got these tips on the town website, then I apologize for taking your time. But if we don't, perhaps someone at the fire department could come up with, first, don't put these devices in recycling or trash. Rawson Reports has on their website places where you can turn these devices in for either store credit or actual cash, regardless of their condition. And also some warnings to parents about where these devices are charged. They really shouldn't be charged in a bedroom, especially. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just want to check to see, is there anybody online who would like an opportunity to speak during public comments? I don't see anybody. I'll just ask again, anybody in the room want an opportunity? Mr. Dolinsky, if you don't mind coming to the front.
Good evening. My name is George Dolinsky. I live on Chapman Road. I'm also the Precinct 2 Chairman for town meeting. I understand that citizens' comments have a time limit, and I'll try to stay within the 3 minutes, which I believe is the proper time.
When there's a lot of people, I don't want to interrupt you, but when there's a lot of people speaking, we have to sort of move things along. But feel at liberty to read any message.
I'll do the best I can to make my points, let you discuss them at your leisure.
Thank you.
The first thing on my agenda is Chapman Road. Chapman Road is a one-way street between Central and Turnpike. Within the last year or so, we've had the cement blocks put up at the end of the street, which has curtailed the heavy-duty and 18-wheelers coming down our street. The one thing we do need is to curtail the speeders that use Chapman Road as the Indianapolis Speedway, that go shooting down the street at unreasonably high speeds. We have people walking on the street, some elderly, like myself. We have people with children that are a lot younger than I. And we have people walking pets, on leash, etc. But seeing the way some of these people go barreling down the street is ridiculous. What we're looking for, with your help and approval, to put in some speed tables on the street that would curtail the speed of these people going down the street. If you take a look into Canton, they've done that on some heavily trafficked streets. And Boston just made the news within the last week or so about putting speed bumps or speed tables on some of their busy streets. I'm asking for the board to do whatever they can to help the people living on Chapman Road curtail these speeders. I don't want to see one of my neighbors get hurt or a child get injured by some of these wacko drivers coming down there with no regard for where they are. That's point one. Second point for you to look into and act on. If I'm not mistaken, there is a noise ordinance in the town that says that we should not have lawn mowing, excavations, or anything starting before 7:30 in the morning. But for some strange reason, I cannot find where it says the noise has to stop. There is no reason why I or some of my neighbors or other people living on other streets have to call the police department at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning to curtail loud, noisy parties. I'm asking the Board of Selectmen to enact, if possible, or if we need to do it, make it a town meeting article, a noise restriction limiting outdoor noise to either 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. Pick one. If you want to compromise, let's go 11:30. But somewhere along the line, we, as residents, deserve the right to have our outdoor parties, but have to be respectful of our neighbors and those on other streets. And I believe if you check with the police chief, there have been numerous calls to her department about noise at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. I know I am one who has made those calls. So I'm asking your help on that. And the third thing on my agenda, if you don't mind, is the intersection at Lincoln and Pleasant Street. Lincoln and Pleasant Street has, and I cannot verify this with the police department, nor have I, quite a large number of accidents at that intersection. There are stop signs on the Lincoln side, but Pleasant Street is a straight run through. I believe it would behoove us to either put a light in that intersection, and I'm not sure if that has to do with the Mass Department of Highways or whatever, or we as town officials, you, the board, and authorize the making of Lincoln and Pleasant a four-way stop. We've done well to put those lighted stop sign things on. That's nice, especially at night. But at the same time, you gotta stop the accidents from happening. It's a dangerous intersection, and I think we and you should act on making sure the people in this town are safe at that intersection. And that's all I have to say. If you want to have a discussion on this, feel free. I don't know if you want me to be part of it, but those are my 3 points.
Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
I'd like to suggest that Mr. Tisdale and I get together, invite George in to work with us, and we'll report back to you on all 4 of these issues.
Perfect. I appreciate it. I sympathize with a lot of your concerns. I live on a cut through, and it's a lot of seniors and young families with little kids on my street, and you know, sometimes you're shocked at how fast people can think they can drive down some of these roads. So I sympathize with that, and with the noise ordinance as well. I know that it's far more common than it has been in the past, and so perhaps it's time to run that through the charter review committee or whoever's necessary to sort of vet how to do that. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Lyons.
Hi, Lisa Lyons, Precinct 2. So the previous speaker just reminded me of something I keep forgetting to ask, and through you, Mr. Chair, to probably the town manager. We spoke about over 18 months ago that you said, speaking of the noise, that train, we were going to get gates to stop the train noise. I was just looking for an update on that. Keep forgetting to ask.
Mr. Coulter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've requested an earmark through the United States Congress through their FY26 budget. I'm going to Washington on the 18th of October, where I'll be meeting with Congressman Lynch and get an update on those crossing, they're called crossing quieting measures. And I'll report back to Ms. Lyons as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
we can see everybody else, but let's see. Mr. Fox, come on up. Keep peeling the onion back, but it's great seeing you, sir. How are you doing?
Good. Juan Fox, 624 Pleasant. Two things. First thing is, and related to the noise, is a problem with engine braking on Pleasant Street. And I would assume on any street that has a slope, there is dump trucks going by, and they're using engine braking to slow down. And the noise is hellacious. I mean, it's, if you want a quiet afternoon, sitting in your patio, and things just blasting down there, and it's not necessary. Engine braking saves on brakes, but it's not necessary to stop the truck. It's a brake-saving measure. And the residents on Pleasant Street, at least, and any other street that might have a slope that has trucks going on, should not have to be annoyed by this. I mean, it's really, really loud. It's like having, a few Harleys going down there blasting away. So I'm just making you aware of the problem, and possibly there might be a solution coming down the line. Somebody comes up with one. And the other thing is related to what Mr. Zielinski said about Lincoln and Pleasant. Maybe as a interim measure, as opposed to a light would be awesome, but as an interim measure, putting some signs up on Pleasant Street stating slow, dangerous intersection. Just people to remind them that they're coming to an intersection that is noted for the problems that it has, and would be just putting some signs up, maybe a little flashing light to make them aware. This time put on the brake a little bit before you get to the intersection. That may stop a lot of the accidents. But I also agree with them that a light would be optimal for that. It will save a lot of trouble. All right.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I know Mr. Feinberg also wanted an opportunity to speak.
Good evening, Arnie Feinberg, Precinct 6. I got a real short comment. In relationship to a previous speaker, there are recycle facilities available at Staples. You can recycle electronic equipment, batteries. Home Depot takes batteries, and I'm sure Lowe's does. I personally save them up, and once a month I just take them over. That's all I got to say. Thank you for listening.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So we will move on to, actually, before we move on, I just want to make sure. Anybody from the board have any other comments they'd like to make? Anybody online? No? Okay, then we will move on to our next item. Next item is the 2024 special town meeting articles. Though the agenda mentions that we will be closing the warrant, we're actually going to hold off on that vote for tonight. But we do have a number of articles that are complex and could use a little bit maybe of a narrative from our finance department and finance director, as well as our the town engineer, just to make sure that we sort of understand what we're reading and what we will be voting on next week. So I'm going to turn the floor over to our town accountant, as well as our town engineer, to discuss some of the trickier articles in here. I know that one of them in particular is the sunset clause.
All right, well, I'll start off, Steve, if that's okay. Then I'll hand it off to our finance director, Biz. Just to it's okay if I just give you a little explanation of what's in front of you and how it works and all that. All right. So in front of you tonight, as you can see, is you have a summary chart of all the articles with a few columns that mentions the department responsible, cost, and funding sources. The funding sources have been worked on by Biz, so you have that information in front of you. The warrant is in pretty solid shape. Our town councils reviewed it, town manager, myself, finance director, department heads that submitted all their articles. Everything's pretty solid. We've been working on it every day for the last week to get it in tip-top shape. What's been confusing in the past, I think, to various boards and different people in town, is a lot of times the warrant that's submitted to you, like tonight, has a proposed motion on it, and sometimes there's blanks in it, and we're working on the numbers and all that kind of thing. It's really the board's purview, and some of the more seasoned veterans on this board, like the two Scotts and Mr. Gito, I guess. Actually, you're getting up there too, Steve. Everybody's pretty seasoned, I guess, but I'm going to try to take my foot out of my mouth now. But I don't know. So what I'm trying to say here is it's not your board's purview to approve the motions. You don't generate the motions. That's the finance committee's purview. That's always how it is. I think when you put proposed motions in the warrant, it confuses things, especially when they're not finalized. That gets done by the finance committee. We have worked on the funding sources. That's all set up. It's noted in your chart. Biz has answers if you want to know how things are funded. But this board does not vote on proposed motions, at least from my standpoint, at least the 13 years I've been here. The other part of information that you have is the backup supporting information for most of the articles. Majority of the articles have backup information. Sometimes the backup information is a chart within the article, so there's no backup information needed. That's pretty much how that works. So in front of you, you have the backup information. Every piece of information has a tab on it stating what the article is and the backup information that was given to us for that article. So over the next week or so, depending on when this board chooses to close the warrant, review the information. I've been given a lot of the information, so I might have answers for you. If not, we'll get answers for you. I think moving forward, there are, at the board's will, there's a few department heads here tonight online, like Matt Cochon, and I can't really read it too well. I believe the town assessor's online, and there's somebody from CPC online too, I believe. So you may want to discuss whatever articles that people are here tonight to discuss, so they don't have to come next week or whenever you choose to close the warrant. But that's up to you. So I think with that said, we'll start off with definitely Article 1, which is one of the main reasons for a special town meeting, which is the sunset bylaw amendment. And then probably Article 2, Biz, which is also the second main reason for a special town meeting, if I read it right. I'll hand it over to Biz.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, before Biz begins.
Yes, sir.
I just want to point something out, that since town meeting passed this bylaw regarding sunset months ago, approximately 5 months ago, the finance team has put in excess of 400 hours in trying to make it right, and trying to clean up the books so it's consistent and compliant with this bylaw. So with the help of Brian Winter and with the help of Peter Murphy, who's been right by our side on this thing, the bylaw is being rewritten, and it's triggering hundreds of journal entries to be consistent with the bylaw, and in the process closing out 10-year articles that are 10 years old to fund current projects. And Biz is going to get into describing what we're doing, but before she does so, I just thought it was appropriate to thank her and her team for making heads or tails of how we fit a very worthy article. Nobody's arguing that bylaw, which was a citizen's petition, isn't helpful. It's very helpful. It forced a lot of work into a short period of time, and I just want to commend Biz and her team for doing that work, and we're in a very, very good place right now, and they've collaborated with the author of the citizen's petition. He, in fact, is going to read the motion when the time is appropriate. So it's been a great example of hard work and collaboration, and I want to thank the entire finance staff for doing that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
If I could chip in too, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to just also team up with the town manager on that one. Thank you, Biz, for all your hard work in your department. everybody in your department. In the small amount of time you've been here, you've cleaned up a lot of articles. I feel like for the last 13 years, I feel like I've closed the same article 5 times, and now we're actually going through the process to officially close these articles, which is great. So it cleans up the books and helps out the town tremendously, and the charts that this board will see over the next week or two will clarify exactly what that is and show how much work Biz has put into this in her department. So thanks, Biz.
Thank you very much. In relation to the sunset bylaw, Brian Winter, legal counsel, is online, and it may be helpful for Brian to explain to you what the changes are to the sunset bylaw that we created to give better or clearer accent to what the petition article was. Brian, are you able to speak to that?
Sure, I'm happy to jump in if that's your pleasure, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Good evening, everybody. As you just heard, this has been a long time in the making, and I won't belabor the point, but following the Maytown meeting, we sat down with Peter Murphy, who is the proponent and author of the original sunset bylaw. We promised to work with him to create sort of a new and improved version because while he had excellent intentions and his idea was a good one and was passed overwhelmingly by town meeting on several occasions, in fact, there were some mechanics that he couldn't possibly have been aware of, and so there were some unforeseen consequences there. So myself, along with Biz and others, started working on figuring out solutions to all those things. And so what you have in front of you now, which is the Article 1 for the special town meeting, is the new and improved version, and it addresses a couple of things. One is the effective date and applicability. So one thing we wanted to do is not have our hands tied behind our back with the old sunset bylaw. So this is superseding and replacing that sunset bylaw as though it never happened. So it's a reset. We've discussed this with Mr. Murphy, and he understands the sort of municipal finance reasons why we need to do that. And so it has an effective date that's prospective, and it won't jeopardize any of the prior articles and borrowings that we had in the past. You'll see it follows basically the same structure as Mr. Murphy's original article: appropriations and borrowing $250,000 or less, appropriations and borrowing $250,000 or more. But there's some additional language in there, and that's to comply with state law. It's to comply with DOR requirements, our in-house and our external financial team. Just to give you a brief example, the previous sunset bylaw didn't make any accommodations for restricted funds, and so if the source of the appropriation was a restricted fund, it was unclear how that was going to be handled, and of course it needs to default back to that restricted fund, so we've addressed those things now. We've created exceptions to make sure that certain things that are sort of outside the scope of this won't be touched by the sunset provisions, while still preserving the original intent that Mr. Murphy had. In 43-6, we created some room for the board to adopt rules and regulations to implement this. Obviously, this is sort of a very high-level regulation, right? It's a bylaw-level regulation. And so there may be nuances and implementation things that we want to look at in the future, and we can do that through regulations. Obviously, there's a clause towards the end just to make it clear that this is intended to be interpreted as consistent with state and federal law, and so that if there's ever an instance where the outcome is mandated by state or federal law or some program that we are working under, that's going to supersede and trump our bylaw. It preserves the board's authority to apply balances not in excess of $50,000 towards the payment of indebtedness. That's a statutory provision, but we've embedded it in here so that it's clear that we can administer this on a staff level, on a board level, without having to go to town meeting every time. So we wanted that to be in there as well. So those are the basic nuts and bolts of it. It should make everyone's lives a lot easier. It meets with Mr. Murphy's approval. We've communicated with him throughout this process. And as recently as a couple days ago, I've sent every draft to him. We've gone over everything with him. And so we're very happy to have his support with this as well. Happy to answer any questions if any members might have them.
So, do any of the board members have questions? Mr. Gio?
I have no questions now on any of the articles, and probably am not going to be able to ask questions of anyone else on these articles right now because I've only got the thing recently. But I would expect that I will be calling people if I have questions to get answers. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Roberts, do you have any questions for tonight?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Vice Chair Carrera, any questions for tonight? You're good. And Ms. McCrisky, as of tonight, also good. So thank you very much. With regard to the sunsetting clause, I guess the question I have is town meeting had voted a sunset clause, and that created some unforeseen issues with our accounting. Is the change right now? Are we looking to make sort of changes around the edges to help clear up some of those issues, or is this like a sort of a full rewrite or 2.0? I guess is my question. Hopefully that makes sense. So can you just turn the mic on?
The sunset articles that we are proposing, we want to continue in the spirit of what the legislative body voted via the petition article. So that's why we have some information on this town meeting. Going straight to petition articles, it would be draft Article 15 is where we'd be going, and that is to close out various articles. As you know, there are a substantial amount of articles that needed to get closed, and we went through all the articles, and on page 15 you'll see two schedules. One is in yellow and one is in blue. The first schedule is prior appropriations closeout articles under Article 70 is town meeting 2023. So with this, we're closing out municipal articles that will either resort back to the enterprise funds, because the funding came out of the enterprise funds to fund projects, return to the general fund, which was use of free cash in the original articles, return to building stabilization funds, that's how they originally voted, and again, two more return to general fund to free cash. And return to free cash, that will be a calculation at the closeout of fiscal 25. The second part is the community preservation appropriations to be closed, and that's the blue section. This was all reviewed with community preservation that they wanted to close these articles. They had thought they had closed these articles in the past. So now we are going to be officially closing them through town meeting. Technically, when you have an article going through town meeting, you want that article closed through town meeting as well, so they can see the comings and goings. So that's pretty much what we have going on that for those particular articles. Those are the sunsets, and then one of the other things we have is Article 14, which is articles for the school department. Capital articles come to approximately, that's going to have to come off of there, come to approximately $638,000. So by closing a number of outstanding articles, we can satisfy those capital requests without taking funding from any more borrowing, any free cash, etc., and the requests of the school department can be satisfied by reallocating.
So I noticed on the town meeting warrant there are the special town meeting warrant. There are what looks to me like at least 3 articles directly connected to sunset. There's the number 1, which is the I think essentially the municipality Number 11 is a bylaw change amendment of the CPC, related to the sunset provision. And then 15 is the, appears to be the school's closeout. I must be wrong about
No, Article 15 is the prior appropriations. That's the section that is on page 13. It's the yellow section and the blue section, closing out appropriations going back to the funds and then the CPC.
Yeah, so 15 is the municipality as well. So that is all the articles that you're describing. That's
Yes.
the final closeout of those. I know we have the original applicant for that online, Mr. Murphy, and I just want to, just for whatever it may be worth, just say that I know that it's a lot of work to get a petition article to town meeting. It's also a lot of work to get that past the town meeting. And he was successful in both endeavors. And I just wanted to thank him for working with everybody to streamline this process, to sort of deal with all the unforeseens in cleaning it up, which he's been doing, from my understanding, graciously and with enthusiasm and helpful feedback. So I just wanted to just thank him for working with the town in that regard. I see that he's raised his hand. I will recognize you, Mr. Murphy. You're going to have to unmute yourself, though.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I just wanted to say it was great working with the town manager, Brian Winter, and also the town accountant. I'm sorry I don't have her name, I can't remember it. But it was a pleasure working with them, but we all worked together hard to make sure that it carried the spirit of what it was intended. And so with success, this should move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, without any other questions, I think we move on. If there's another article that we'll be discussing, or are we done for the evening?
All right.
Were there any other, I know that we were sort of discussing some of maybe the stickier, more complex articles. Were there any others that you wanted to give us a little bit of a head start as we go do our reading? Sure. Could you turn your mic on again?
Sorry.
That's okay.
There is one more article I'd like to give the heads up on, and that's Article number 2, which is defined as supplemental budget for fiscal _25. During fiscal '25, the Norfolk County retirement budget was under budgeted by $379,402, and that had to do with late timing as far as receiving the information from Norfolk County Retirement. Also, what we're doing on this budget is we are moving funding from the town manager's office, as we no longer have an internal auditor, and that position has now been moved back into the finance office as a staff accountant. And also to fund that position and to fund additional funding at $18,936 coming from the town manager's office as well, to fund the staffing and audit, under budgeting for the audit for fiscal '25. So the two offset, the 107,420 and 107,420, they offset. It's a negative. It's just a budgetary transfer. But we wanted to make sure that this transfer was out and open in the public and transparent. So we were in front there. And then, like I said, the $379,000 retirement is something that we have to cover. As far as, and I will speak to this, as far as the funding sources are concerned, we will not be going to taxation to fund this. The final cherry sheets came out at the end of July. So with that, there's $197,000 roughly. I'll have to get the exact figure. Cherry sheet offsets, we have an additional $191,492 that can help offset that cost, and review of local receipts. I felt that what we have brought in will allow us to take an increase of a 1,879.10 on local receipts. So it's fully funded for the 379,402.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Without any further comments? Yeah, Ms. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing me through you to Mr. Coulter. Help me understand the auditors, the internal auditors position that was Thank you, Luke. That was originally described and as a need to audit the various departments that report to you. Has something changed? Is that because of just probably a couple of months ago, there's an audit that's going to be led by the Department of Revenue or something like that? Maybe that's what the change is. But I just wanted to better understand. Thank you.
It's a great question, Deborah. It was our intent at the beginning of this budget year to do internal auditing of departments. It seemed like we had the luxury of doing that at the time. We've had a complete staff turnover of the finance department, and under business leadership have hired 2 certified municipal accountants with over 30 years experience with each one of them. And what we've discovered is a decade full of work, of backlog that needs to be remedied so that we can get our books straight once and for all. This goes back 40 years. But if you don't do it every year, it grows, it becomes cumulative, it becomes overwhelming. Biz has assembled a team of town accountants that are tackling problems that were beyond our capacity even 6 months ago, and are now straightening out these town books like they've never been straightened out before. So the answer to your question, Deborah, is internal auditing is not as important to us right now, given the 4 corners of our budget, what we have to work with, than it is to have superior staff accountants that can straighten these books out once and for all, and that will serve this community for decades to come. So that's where we're spending that money. That's where we're spending those resources. So Biz is taking the town auditor out of the town manager's department, which I support, and putting it into the accounting department. So it's all hands on deck, getting these books in great shape. It's a matter of priorities and resources. Thank you for asking.
Completely. Thank you for that explanation.
Thank you. One thing I would like to add, not related to this, but just in general, is that with special town meetings, normally when we vote, we have like 4 or 5 pages stapled together with just a very quick description of the articles, and maybe an executive summary of what the purpose is. And what we've been handed tonight is something that I think is practically the warrant. Like, this is what will with very few changes, probably end up in the book that people are getting. So this is, a month ahead of schedule. This is a lot of work that went into getting it to this level. The select board, honestly, for the first time that I can recall, we'll have a chance to really, dive into this without just sort of the Cliff's Notes version of what people are looking for, with backup included. And I know this is a lot of work. I know how, because people work very hard for a month plus to get it to this level. So the fact that we have something at this caliber on day 0 is really fabulous. And I just want to thank everybody involved. I know Mr. Tisdale was, because I know you were heavily involved in this, but probably every department, members of the school committees.
Yeah, it's really a team effort with everybody, finance, all the department heads, not so much town manager, but everybody other than him. So.
Yeah. Give you a big thumbs up when you walk by the door.
One more comment, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
On the budget, as you well know, because you've been at the tip of the spear in this thing, we are very close to executing a memorandum of agreement with the school system on every element of the 2026 budget. So under Steve's leadership, the leadership of Catherine Weiss and Superintendent Bayetta, The four of us have been in 3 straight meetings. We've got our closing meeting this Thursday, and we hope to have a 14-point memorandum of understanding before we begin the budget process, which includes, not required, but includes estimate of revenues and how we derive those revenues, which has never happened before. So we're very excited about it. I also want to echo, and Mark and I kid each other all the time, you know, people graciously thank the manager for things he has nothing to do with, and I appreciate that. Please don't stop. But this is an effort between yourself, Mr. Chairman, Mark Tisdale, and Biz. And your leadership is extraordinary, and I thank you for it.
Yeah, this is quite amazing. You know, so I just and I know I've got to also thank Brian Winter. He's online, so not only because you're there, but because I know you did the work too. So, thank you all very much. So, if there's no further comments, we can move on to the next item on the agenda.
If I could, Mr. Chairman,
Of course.
out of respect for the department heads that are here, maybe we could have them present their articles so they don't have to come a second time. I think Mr. Koshan's on, I see.
Oh yeah, I'm fine with that. We've got so certainly have time tonight. So how many people do we? I know he's there. We also have Michael Barrett from the CPC. Yep. I don't know if he's just come to join us, as well as Julie from the assessor's office. So let's sure. Let's move on to we'll start with Matt. If you're on, I think you have one article, or
If I may, Mr. Chair, for the articles for the adopting the laws for the tax and excise and the construction law that is being addressed, those will both be spoken to by Mr. Winter.
Okay.
He's going to describe those for us.
I'm sort of having second thoughts, and Mr. Tisdale, my concern is that as the board members read through this, they're going to have questions that they're going to want to answer, and all these people will probably have to come again next week. So, you know,
That's what is going to happen.
yeah. So apologies. I think it's probably better if we just move it to next week, have it all in one solid meeting.
That makes sense.
So sorry, Matt, and other members of town staff. I think we're going to be coming back next week to discuss these things. And I thank you for staying up very late to be here for us and be available for us. And thank you all for bringing these articles forward and getting them to the very polished state that they're already at. Okay, so with no further comments, I think we'll move on to the next item on the select board agenda. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, the last order of business is a executive session. There's 2 items. Item A, executive session pursuant to Open Meeting Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 3 and 6, to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating and litigating position of the board, and the chair so declares. Item B, approval of executive session minutes meeting of July 18th, 2024 and July 3rd, 2024. I do find that with regard to strategy with respect to potential litigation, I do find it detrimental to discuss the items that we need to discuss in an open session, and would affect both our negotiating and litigation position. So I ask that we go into executive session. Is there a motion to enter executive session?
So made.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. So, made by Ms. Roberts, seconded by Mr. Gito. All in favor, Mr. Gito? Yes. Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Carrera?
B. I'm going to leave.
You'll leave for an MB? Okay, we'll cover item A first and then
Yes.
leave for item B.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. To enter executive session, your vote?
Yes.
Okay. I vote yes as well. So we have a unanimous vote to enter executive session. We'll be discussing item A as a full board. Item B, Mr. Carrera will recuse himself for that section. We will not be returning to an open session. and we will be adjourning from executive session. So thank you all and have a great night. Meeting adjourned.